Decades ago, if you were looking for the fastest, most powerful, and most expensive four-door sedan from the BMW lineup, it would have been the M5. But there's a new kid on the block. That's the 2021 BMW M8 Competition Gran Coupe. Let's go for a drive. All right, you guys, BMW M8 Competition time. This is going to be one hell of a drive. Thank you so much, BMW Canada, for tossing us the keys for the week. There are quite a few differences between the standard M8 and the M8 Gran Coupe, which this is, and that basically means it's the four-door version. And there are major differences. I mean, when push comes to shove, they are basically two very different cars, minus the engine. The engine and powertrain is the same, but as far as all the dimensions and the wheelbase is concerned, and trunk space, etc., and headroom, they're very different. First off here, we are going to hit the M mode button. We are going to start off in sport mode, and we're in loud exhaust mode. So that 4.4 liter twin turbo V8 under the hood can sing, and that's kind of what all modern M products that we've found this year that we've driven kind of are true dual personality vehicles, you know, especially in the competition lineup. The M8 Competition is a sports sedan first, I would say, and a luxury sedan second. So 617 horsepower, 553 pound-feet of torque being sent to all four wheels via BMW's xDrive dynamic all-wheel drive system. Now that is being sent through an electronically controlled multi-plate clutch before it gets sent to the M Sport differential in the rear, which then decides how much of a torque split to send to each rear wheel individually. What has actually changed in the last few years is BMW M has followed AMG in that you can fully disable the front wheels and the torque that is being sent to them. If you have DSC off and you're basically in track mode, it can become a burnout machine. So the M experience is not all lost here. In fact, it's not lost at all. You need to realize it's definitely erring more on the side of the sports sedan than it is the ultimate luxury sedan. And an example of that would be, we drove the X5M Competition a few months ago, and that is fitted with incredible massage seats, which I don't believe this has actually been fitted with. It does not have the controls for that on the side here. Albeit it does have some other great features that you would come to expect from any modern BMW or any high-end six-figure M product, which this is, starting at $158,000. We'll get into the options a little bit later, but as you can see on the interior here, lovely Alcantara headliner the entire way on the A-pillar here and up. You are in the not only the fastest four-door BMW on sale today, but also the most expensive. So you've got your M1 and M2 buttons on the steering wheel here. If you're familiar with modern M products, this is nothing new. I'll tell you guys right now, I've driven the car for a week. There's so much to take in here that it's literally almost impossible to take it all in a week, you know? And that's why I say, and I've said this before, maybe not so much for the lower end BMWs or lower end vehicles in general, but for a lot of the higher end stuff, one second here. For a lot of the higher end stuff, you want to go into the dealership and you want to just at least ask if you can take the car out for like a full 24 hours or a longer time than just around the block, because the features and the infotainment, everything about the vehicle, there's so many options that it would really take. I mean, if you owned this car, it would really take like at least a month to truly get familiar with the vehicle and for it to become kind of second nature. Okay, see corners up ahead, okay, boom, boom, M1, you're in that mode. Tell your passenger to hold the F on for dear life because the G-forces are gonna be incredible, and then you do your thing. You know, the M8 Competition is, I mean, from what I've driven, and no, I haven't driven the top-of-the-line AMG sedans, this is the Mac Daddy of German sedans. I mean, this is the ultimate, what some would call the ultimate Autobahn cruiser. It's made for roads that literally don't have a speed limit, or at the very least have a variable speed limit that would allow you to do a pull, let's say, from 60 kilometers an hour up to 300 kilometers an hour. The M8 is like, I don't know, it's a complete showstopper. It is like the person who is fashionably late to the party gets all the attention. That is what the M8 Gran Coupe is. This is the person that walks into the party and everybody's looking. All eyes are on you. So what's really interesting about the 4.4 liter V8, and specifically its turbocharger placement. So I don't know if you guys know, but both with the smaller displacement, kind of new era AMG V8s that are boosted, as well as this 4.4 from BMW, the turbochargers, yeah, it's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So the turbochargers are actually what's called a hot V setup. So they're actually in between the cylinder banks of the engine. And what's cool is the exhaust manifolds, where traditionally, like on an American V8 or an LS or a Mopar engine of some kind, the turbochargers would be fed from each side with the 4 cylinders on each side feeding each turbocharger. But in the case here with the BMW, 2 exhaust ports on one side feed into one turbo, and then another 2 from the other side feed into that same turbo, and vice versa. So you're actually getting 2 cylinders from one side, 2 cylinders from the other side, feeding into one turbo, which is really cool. So in essence, because it is a cross-plane crank V8 here, and not a flat plane crank, they've done this setup with the exhaust manifolds in conjunction with the twin scroll turbos to make each pulse of exhaust gases coming out just incredibly smooth, and to not have them all just feed into one turbo and let the turbo do the work, right? All these parts are working in conjunction with each other, which provides literally like one of the quickest spooling 617 horsepower engines I've ever experienced, either from a manufacturer or a modified vehicle. It's the 8-speed automatic. I believe it's the ZF gearbox. Really great transmission. Tuned wonderfully here as well. Like I said though, if you want to squeeze the most power out of it, and to get the torque, you really don't have to wind it out, but you can rev to 7,200 RPM here, and it sounds amazing. Now, you don't actually get like a lot of crackles and the pops that you do. I think the AMG exhaust experience is still like definitely a cut above the M exhaust experience here, but it's not obnoxious, you know? You are driving I think this one's spec'd out around $170,000 Canadian. You're almost touching McLaren money when it comes to an M8 Competition, but that being said, this is for those who will settle for nothing less than having 617 horsepower powering 4 people. You know, 10 years ago, we may have complained that boosted V8s like this just kind of lacked the character that some of the older NA-M products kind of made. And, you know, I mentioned this in our recent modified F80 M3 video, but that's just not the case here. The sounds and the torque that this engine delivers is so beyond what you can really put into words, like what you're feeling, that you're never thinking about, oh, I wish it was NA, I wish I was driving an older M car. that has never crossed my mind. This past week, that it hasn't crossed my mind once. It is just so seamless. What's really cool with the transmission too, you can change the actual aggressiveness of the shifts. Wow, the G-forces. But the grip is ridiculous. It is so beyond. You have to go so fast to even feel like you're not even approaching the limit of grip. But like you can barely get even close to the limit of grip on the street, nor should you. Honestly, nor should you. Just ridiculously quick. 0 to 60 is done in 3.2 seconds. And considering the weight, considering the immense weight that the M8 has to deal with through the corners and off the line, that is impressive. That is ridiculously impressive. And I think it really speaks volumes to the torque delivery and the xDrive all-wheel drive system. Now, does it feel as quick as, let's say, a 600 or 700 wheel horsepower Supra or GTR, Skyline GTR? No, it definitely does not feel as quick as something like that, because of course the 617 horsepower rating is rated at the crank and not the wheels. So when we shoot modified cars, we're often talking about wheel horsepower measured on a dyno, whereas a manufacturer quoted horsepower figure is rated roughly at the crank. And the German manufacturers, thank God, they usually underrate their power a little bit, especially Porsche does this a lot. So you actually get kind of more horsepower than what you think you're paying for. And I think the same is here. I'm not gonna lie. The M8 does not disappoint in the power department. It does disappoint in the value department. I feel like any way you spin it, starting at $158,000 Canadian, fully spec'd out this morning on BMW.ca, I configured one to $179,000 Canadian. Now, that is including $9,500 for carbon ceramic brakes, $1,200 Canadian for the M engine cover that you only see when you pop the hood. It's your choice whether you go with that or not, and a few other options that are, $3,000, $4,000 each. So the price is pretty much the only downside. Aside from the price, if you have the money, if this is like your third, fourth, or fifth vehicle, which may sound ridiculous to some of you guys, but when you get into the world of cars, especially supercars and older supercars and auction sites, you realize that there are so many people out there that buying a $170,000 or $80,000 car is no issue. So if there is a downside, or if there was a downside to the M8, it's the price. And the fact that, here on the interior here, if you would put me in this M8 and then put me immediately in like an M340i, it feels the same. It feels the same. Other than all these materials, when you actually start poking around and looking around and feeling things, slight differences. But as far as the gauge cluster, the steering wheel, infotainment, everything, it's all the same. It's all the same, right? So that to me is a little bit of a disappointment, going from like a $60,000 M340i to $160,000 M8. I would hope that there would have been, a little bit more of a wow factor upon initially stepping inside. But that being said, the road presence is absolutely it's on a boss level here. More and more so, I find myself being impressed by what manufacturers are doing in terms of creating 617 horsepower that you can just daily, no problem. Nice blob eye just passed there. Wow. You don't feel the speed either. It can really, really get away from you. All right, you guys, thanks so much for watching. This has been the 2021 M8 Competition. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell and follow me on Instagram for any updates on what we're shooting in the future. So thanks so much for watching, you guys. Really appreciate it. We'll see you soon.